What did you witness? What happened?
So, Nana, I was in the city centre with my 3 children and my husband. So my kids are age 12, 13 and 15, and we witnessed the protest. So exactly what you've seen in the media, the videos, the footages, we heard and we saw and we were part of it. So we were within a few metres away from everyone.
You weren't part of it as in it?
No.
But you ended up... So
yeah.
if you could sort of, when you were looking, if you could give us a rough estimate of how many people you thought you saw within that protest.
So I would say there were hundreds of people because they were actually coming towards us.
Wow.
So we were actually outside the centre and they came towards us, and then I started to video it. I had my 3 kids with me, and their reaction was actually not surprising, but similar to what you've just said, to other people's reaction. They were actually frightened because they weren't sure what the protest was about, firstly, and then they started to hear a lot of people, so they were quite frightened.
So that's the footage that you took of the thing going on.
Yes.
What could you hear them saying? What kind of...
So they were talking about the vaccine, and they said, don't take the vaccine. They were actually, you know, just shouting. And when they saw me actually videoing it, I also got some shouting as well. So I was actually quite stunned about what was happening. But at the same time, I did understand where they were coming from. Being a parent, I understood that as parents, we all need to have that freedom of speech. And these people were obviously just voicing their concerns. But on the other hand, being a doctor and psychiatrist and a mum, I understood that, you know, I work in a hospital. We make sure that our patients are having their vaccines. We are having our vaccines and our boosters. My kids are very important to me, as your kids would be, Nana. So for them, having the vaccine was also important for us as a family and for them. So, you know, attending school and being at risk of harm.
The sort of things they were saying, did it sound to you that they were saying things that were disinformation? Is that the sort of thing? I mean, can you remember any of the banners or the placards and what they said? Yes, I think they were saying they were talking about the NHS and how they obviously, and about the boosters. Don't take the boosters. It was about you know, and exactly what you've just said. It was all about that and about the information. I think what they were saying was that we've obviously been misled by taking the vaccine. I think people that are taking the boosters, you know, the nationwide incident which Boris Johnson has declared, where by the 31st of December they have to vaccinate a whole lot of people with the boosters. All of that, there was a protest against that. What did you think when you first saw the video of the protest? Were you aware that anything like that was happening?
Yes, we were aware of a small protest that was planned, and the anti-vaxxers have done various protests around Milton Keynes. The problem with this one is that many more people turned up to it, and it turned from a protest into a march, and then the march, as you've just heard from your previous guest, went to the wrong place. They went to a testing centre instead of their original target of a vaccination centre. And that's where the scenes at the testing centre were filmed that caused such outrage on social media. So to answer your question, I was absolutely furious. It was a ridiculous thing to do to disrupt people going about being tested. Absolutely outrageous to be shouting what they were doing at the staff, and as you see in this footage here, taking away things from the testing centre. It's not on. It's not acceptable, and we need to seriously think about how we stop this happening. And we also need to throw the book at the people who caused this disruption.
The person who put those things in the bin should be done for criminal damage straight away. I mean, do you think there needs to be more of a police crackdown on protests of this nature? For example, we've got the police crime and sentencing and courts bill in there. Do you think the police need more powers and need to be able to crack down a bit better on this sort of thing?
I certainly think that powers need to be more nuanced to deal with new and different ways of being disruptive in a protest. But one of the things, as you've just been discussing in your previous segment, is that we have in this country is freedom of speech. We treasure it. It is a great British value, and we should look after it. But when these things are misused, and when conspiracy theories wind up in protests, and we get the scenes that we had yesterday in the Milton Keynes Testing Centre, then there does need to be a much more nuanced and targeted way for the police to intervene on this kind of thing. So yes, we are on the right track with the police crime and sentencing bill, and it will give the police more powers to do what they need to do in these events.
Because it's they do have powers, and they could have used the current powers they have, but there just seems to be this ability for people to be pulling down statues, destroying things, all in the name of freedom of speech, and something does need to be looked at. What would you say to those who are sceptical about taking the vaccine? I mean, Seshni gave us her view. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I mean, my thoughts are that the vaccines are our way out of this. This is how we're going to protect ourselves. This is how we've protected ourselves from the various things that nature has thrown at us over the last 100 years or so. Vaccines aren't new to us. They may be new for COVID-19, but they're not new for polio or smallpox or indeed flu. I have my flu vaccine every year anyway. So I would encourage people to get the vaccine if they haven't got their vaccine, get the booster if they haven't had their booster. Because we do know that 90% of the people in ICU at the moment, in intensive care, in hospitals with coronavirus, are unvaccinated. So getting the booster vaccine makes you less ill if you catch the virus. It also makes you less chances of catching the virus, and it gives you less chance of passing on the virus as well. So it's a good thing to do for you, for your family, for your community, and for the NHS.
That 90% figure was an anecdotal figure that Boris Johnson provided, and I think he was talking about those who hadn't been boosted, because we've got to sort of work out the terminology of when we say people who are unvaccinated, what we're talking about. What about the anti-vaxxers, though? Just finally, their freedom to speech and to be able to say how they feel.
Well, and again, we do treasure the freedom of speech in this country, and freedom of opinion, and frankly, freedom to be an idiot if you want to be. But the scenes that we saw yesterday is kind of a head-on collision between all of those three things, where people took the law into their own hands and went about disrupting other people's lives, and clearly that isn't on. So we treasure freedom of speech, but we treasure it because it needs protecting. So when you get these things like conspiracy theorists going off on one, which is essentially what happened yesterday, we do need to make sure that we take steps to avoid that. Be that with our online harms bill, with our online literacy work that we're doing this year, or indeed with the more harder-edged policing we need to do as well.